Hello, Ellen. Testing. This is Clyde Davee, and I'm playing this on a 2-track tape to avoid some of the problems which we have encountered on this last trade of tapes. I'm going to check this back. Excuse me a moment. Tex Old Boy, Pamela, Kim, Jan, Philip Scott, and all the Maudens, you darling folk. How I'd like to be with you tonight. But here I am, all by myself, which I'll explain later, in our little hilltop house, high on the hill, looking out over Highway 101, which carries the busy traffic to and from Los Angeles, Mexico, and our various intervening towns or places in which people live. Villages is what I'm trying to say. To start in, as you did, on this tape. I don't understand it, Alan, because I have played back each tape that I sent, and on my machine in fact, it was better than I expected in each instance. However, I did find, after playing back your tapes, we had something which was not exactly right. There were either harmonics or a used tape, or it was something in which I got a message most of the time. I played it 3 times before I got the gist of all that you were saying, and part of the time I had a vague impression there was someone talking in the background, which made me believe that possibly it may have been a used tape. That is I don't mean it as a criticism, but you said that mine was poor on your machine, so it might be that there's something in our relative machines which does not seem to add up. Now, I'll say this. I use a Wallensack model T1616. It's a good machine. That is, it works wonderfully, both in receiving and in sending, so far as I'm concerned. I play it back, and it sounds in fact, a little bit better than I usually do, and the voices of my friends, or so they tell me. I always play back my tape to test them before I send them. Now, it could have been an overlap on this 4-track operation which we used the last time, or it could have been a malfunction. But was our voice and our music clear? And by the way, that brings up a point which I found very sensitive in Ireland when I sent them over there. Tape is quite dear there. It's very, very reasonable here. So if you need it, I'll be just happy to send you all you want, be it inches, feet, yards, meters, 1,300 inches it's very reasonable. About $2, or what would that be? 14 times 7, about 14 shillings, something like that. So don't hesitate. If you want any of those things, all you have to do is let me know. I can get it from good old Dick Shanks and be happy to send it to you. Hold on while I check my notes. You say you chided us in your usual gentle way. We didn't mean to accuse you of neglecting us. We were worried about you. We love you folks, as you probably already know. I think we've told you time and again, and I think that our actions show that. And we didn't mean to chide, and I don't think that you intended that. But just in case there was a feeling that we were chiding you, please don't feel that way, because all we wanted was to be certain that there wasn't someone sick, because we hadn't heard from you for around 4 to 5 months. And that isn't like the Maudens or the Davees, for that matter. And we were worried about you, so I just wanted to be sure. One of the things that may have caused a problem in sending these tapes is that mail restrictions in the United States is that one side must be at least 4.5 inches in length and not less than 3 inches in width. Well, these tape cartons or mailers that we enclose our tape in are not of that minimum requirement. Therefore, we may have unconsciously violated the United States postal laws, and they may have, for that reason, shunted them aside, and they could do it legally without fear of censor. That is, unless it would be semi-official censor or public reaction. That's just something to think about, because I worried about that, and I know you have too, or you wouldn't have said what you did. Now, as to the tape, we show on our tape, we place the left-hand spool with the shiny side facing us as we face the controls. It unwinds to our left, that is upper, left, down, across in front of us, and up on our right and around the spool as we face it, and the shiny side is toward us. Is that the way your machines are working? I do hope that we get this straightened away, because I want our messages to be clear, and for that reason I'm using the 2-track instead of the 4-track, because frankly I think we probably will get better results. And as I said before, tape is not dear. We can buy a 150 inches spool for approximately $1.50, something like that, including the spool, and I don't even have to measure it out as I'm doing in this instance. However, that is neither important. I do hope that you come in, that I come in clearly to you, and that we have no further trouble. But please, and I mean this most sincerely, please give me your usual excellent criticism in the tape. Am I talking too loudly, too softly? Do I talk too much? Tell me what you would like to hear, and you know I'll always do my best. Let me check a moment. This is June 10, 1963, and how we did enjoy your tape. We played it over and over again. As I say, we played it at least 3 times. I know we played it twice the first night. It was so wonderful to hear your voices. And speaking of voices, Jan, dear, you will be a cinema star. Over here in the United States, we would call it movie star. However, I understand you call it cinema. And your voice is wonderful, but will you next time get a little closer to the microphone, because Uncle Clyde and Aunt Elaine had trouble hearing you. But you have a real nice voice, and the fact that you are doing cutouts to help Mommy at Sunday school is wonderful. And oh, how you can sing, Jan dear. Your voice is tremendously sweet and pretty when you sing. Pam, I'm sorry to say I don't know how old Kim, Jan, and Philip Scott are. Would you please advise me on their next tape? Kim, old partner, you all are in orbit. Now, in case you don't know what I'm talking, that's Texas talk for you're really tops. You're big stuff. You're high on the wall of credits. You're a pretty swell fellow, a fine lad. Actually, Kim, you know, you're my pal, my good friend, and I love you. Yes, I do. I know I shouldn't, but I do. I'm so happy that you have a new school and that you like it. And as your reference about, is it a backer or barracker, which we call a fan, Father Allen told us over the tape that it was not, a barracker wasn't used, as I understand it. Now, you have a copy of Camel's Bluebird, a famous speed car. That's wonderful, because we all thrilled when he made his wonderful record on, I believe it was on the Utah Salt Flats up here, which is, of course, a huge dry lake with salt residue on the surface, which makes a wonderful test spot. They put a white line down there, and he straddles that line with his wheels, and I think he drove something like 400 miles an hour. You probably know the exact speed, but I do not. By the way, Kim, your remarks about Canberra show that you're a very observant young man. You have a keen mind behind it, too. All of your remarks show that you are looking and thinking about what you see, and I like that. I think that you're going to be a credit to your mother and your daddy and Uncle Clyde, too. And your songs are tuneful, they're accurate and well sung. In fact is, you sing just like a pro. And that's what we in the United States call a professional. He is a pro. Like golf pro, automobile driving pro, and so on. Thank you, Kim. Thank you for your nice messages to me, and you've no idea how much I appreciated your calling me Uncle Clyde. Oh, I've forgotten about the judo. That's wonderful. You keep up that judo, because that, no matter, even if you only grow up to be 5 feet 7 inches tall, and some fellow who weighs about 14 stone or 198 pounds and is 6 feet tall, which is almost 2 meters, he comes up and attempts to bully you, you will have the advantage because you will know how to handle him. So you work on that. But of course, all judo instructors never give their pupils anything but the right kind of information so that they will not use it wrongfully, because they could kill someone if they used it in a wrongful manner. Pam, dear, you are indeed a good mother. You're firm, yet sweet. Your voice is clear, and we understand you perfectly. Your report on the decline of morals is timely, but life has always been as it is. It's rather difficult on Macmillan and his party, but it may help other people to be more circumspect, even if not less sinful. I'm going to, on your report, although now it's probably a little bit late, I'm going to give you 2 tips or formulas for ease. One is to speak to someone you know or like in the back of the room. The reason it's in the back, so you'll keep your volume up high so they can hear you, and you speak to them because you know you. So therefore, you don't need to hurry. You smile frequently. You use your hands, and you have to be enthused about your topic, and you'll do well. That I know. You're a fine girl, and I might add further, you are fine mother. I mentioned that before, and a fine wife. And I think that you are deserving of your husband, who is my friend for many years, and I might say that he is very deserving of you. God bless you both, and I mean that very, very sincerely. By the way, Philip Scott was rather the star of the show, with his cameras, the cotton around his neck, clicking the camera and winding the cotton around his neck, and talking about the clock at Canberra in the House of, what we would call it, is it Parliament? I believe it is, yes. And I can tell by the remarks given that he is the apple of his father's eye. And a right smart young apple he is. Eh, what? Tex, old boy? Now we're getting back to Father, or Tex, or Alan. We receive no radio in Australia. All the only news we get is by way of papers on business, events, and sports. And of those sports, tennis, distance running, swimming, and surfing are the major ones. The sports magazines have A1 stories on the things that they have there in Australia. Done very well, I might add. Now let me see. Oh, pardon me. I was checking the tape, and I got off my thoughts here. I'm glad to see you're continuing your politics, and I was very much interested in your new currency denominations, the way it's worked out, and I think that you're doing. I think it's going to be a good thing for you, and it's certainly going to be a good thing for the upcoming generation. Your new shire sounds good. 117 square miles. The different problems, are there different problems, or are there higher aims in the 2 different plans for the shire? Not that I just don't understand exactly what the different problems are. You say there's many of them who do not think as you. And knowing you, I'm sure that you're thinking for the most, for the majority at least, and God bless you for that, because that's what we need to make this a better world. And I know that you are certainly along those lines. You went to Canberra in your own car, and did I understand you to say that your car is a Ford Falcon? They're a real fine car. economical, they're fast, have enough power. In fact, they're a fine, fine car. And you stayed in a motel, not a hotel. A motel, which means a place to park one's car and yet have a place to stay. I'm glad. I didn't know they had those things over there. It must be very pleasant. And your description of the U.S. Memorial, which was built by the government of Canada, that must be a wonderful, wonderful thing. I hope someday to see it and to bring along my Exacta camera, 135 millimeter, and take a picture thereof to show my friends here how our Australian friends think of those who lost their lives in doing their bit for the USA, for Australia, for the worthwhile things in life, or their ideals. Alan, I was interested to look over your brochure or your pamphlet on the things that you list there as services through your various offices there in Adelaide and in Canberra. You sell almost everything, do you not? You told me once what the word for PTY means. I believe it's company, but what is the abbreviation for? All this indicates that you are rapidly progressing in business, in family too, I might add, expanding your home, expanding into politics, and growing 30 different types of trees. By the way, in relation to your trees in your home, I noticed you have this new tennis court. Sounds wonderful, and I'm glad you're fencing it to eliminate the dogs. It must be wonderful with your children around to be interested in all those different things that you're doing. And also your flowers. Of course, we love flowers. They're our hobby too. And it was so interesting to hear of all the various flowers which you have. We still have the book of flowers, of Australian flowers, which you sent us some year and a half ago. And so when you mention it, we can pull out our booklet and look it over. We have it on our hobby shelf here in our home, not in the office. So therefore we can see it here. You have your anniversary in March, anniversary for both your birthdays and your marriage anniversary. How wonderful. By the way, how long have you been married? I judge it to be about 11 years. And I've already asked you for the ages of your children. You see, I jotted these notes down as I tried to think of them. And also, I didn't know that the Coral Sea anniversary was in April. Of course, I remember the Coral Sea very, very well. My goodness, it was on everyone's tongue at that time. But I didn't remember that it was in April. Thank you for reminding me. Now, the Soviet Russia and their Austrianauts, you know, they did a pretty good thing there. But of course, they were using that for propaganda, in my humble opinion at least, because the girl made something like 22 laps or turns around the Earth, and I believe he went 87, whereas our Cooper made only 7 turns around the Earth. Of course, I can't see the terrific expense in space as yet. It doesn't mean that much to me, but I realize that I have a great deal to learn. So I'm trying to keep that in mind, but yet I'll stand on what I said. Now, Elaine and I coming to Australia, believe me, friends, we'd love it. And we'll let you know in advance when we can come. But there are many, because we know there are many things to see. And your fine book showed much of the country, of the business, of the industry, and we read it. Of course, we read the stories of cattle raising, of sheep, of the Aborigines out on the dry and the distant, lovely country, and of course the desert, with little water. And as I say, I read the story of the Aborigines and their constant quest for food, for water, and how they handle it. Tremendous, tremendous story. Tex, I'm so glad that you have that pride in Pam's speaking. I would share it if my good wife would do that. She is rather retiring, I'm sorry to say. Well, I'm not sorry, but pardon me, I had to have a pull on my cigar. Um, I'm not sorry about it because, after all, we are all different. But Elaine doesn't care for doing things, and yet I can remember when, after a few drinks, why she will sing and um do like her ugly husband. He'll get up on his feet and talk and sing and do anything just because he likes to make a big noise, I suppose. But anyway, I'm glad you're proud of Pam speaking and you're helping her. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. You mentioned the honey bucket. Someone did. Oh, it was Pam. Um, it's gone now. Bart Hazlitt and his Dixie Ramblers are still around, but um, where they're playing, I just don't know. They're very, very good, weren't they? By the way, pertaining to our cars, we have a Mercedes-Benz and a Volkswagen, which we purchased both in June of 1962 over in Germany. That is, we made arrangements for them here, and we picked up the Volkswagen at the Volkswagen factory in Wolfsburg. We had the Mercedes-Benz delivered to us in Nice, France, and we drove it some 2,300 miles. Here in San Diego, we use the Volkswagen daily and the Mercedes-Benz for our rides and distance, because it's a little more comfortable and more spacious. As to my camera, it's an Exacta. I have an f2 lens, a telephoto 135 millimeter. We have a tripod, a light meter, and a telephoto lens. I mentioned that, didn't I? We bought them all here in the United States, although they are made in Eastern Germany. It's a wonderful hobby, photography, and we try to specialize in flowers, in scenes of beauty, and semi-portraits. Tex, you mentioned Ronald Aresti on the USS Buchanan, who was a guest at your table. It's a missile ship. That's an interesting thing and a wonderful thing to do. I have wanted to do those things, but as you know, Elaine doesn't care too much about cooking. And therefore, when we have foreign ships in, we don't often get anyone, we never get anyone to our home, and very seldom run into them, because of the fact that, well, we just do things differently, and not having a family to entertain, well, it makes it different too, I suppose. I saw the Philippine Sea, at which an aircraft carrier, and spent 4 hours in a submarine. We even went down to 400 feet below the surface of the water. And I would like to ride in a jet fighter soon. Oh well, I can dream, can't I? About your companies, I assume that you plan and actually organize each company, and either furnish the financing or borrow and manage this company. You obtain either partners or employees on an incentive plan. I'm not nosy, Alan. I don't mean it that way, but I am interested. So tell me only what you wish. As the director, I suppose you are chief stockholder, or at least have the majority of the stock, and or it's possible even that you are the complete owner. Am I right? Now, please, if I'm treading on personal business, tell me so. I don't mean to be that way. You mentioned our friend Patrick O'Connell from Ireland. He was over here for 3 weeks. He was the former president for 6 years of the Lee Rowing Club of Cork City, Ireland. And Bud and Ginny and Elaine and I met him in 1962. He's a very intelligent, gracious, talented former actor and a very likable person. We took him to several places for dinner, to Disneyland, to Marineland, which is up near Los Angeles. I think you remember that, because that's where they have the whales, the sea animals, the seals or sea lions, and the porpoises who perform, jump up out of water. Because, it would be wonderful for your children, of course, to see. And of course, I guess, a child still at heart, because I love it. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see these. Well, they have one whale that weighs 4,000 pounds, 2 tons, who leaps up out of the water his entire length to get a fish from the hand of the keeper there. I thought I'd let you hear the start of that. Mon homme. Did I say it right? Don't speak French correctly. Ma man. To get back to Patrick O'Connell, We went up to Las Vegas for the floor shows and did a little bit of gambling. And by the way, I must say that's the most opulent place I've ever seen. Perhaps you have seen better with your greater experience. We took him to the desert and to the mountains, from the sea level to about 8,500 feet high. We took him to the Derby Day in Caliente, that's down in Mexico, as you remember. We had dinners in many homes. We took him out to a fine horse farm where they have thoroughbreds and quarter horses. As you know, quarter horses they could be either thoroughbreds, but they're usually are standard horses which are trained to run not more than a quarter of a mile. And by the way, they are faster than a thoroughbred for that short distance, sprint type. We also took him to Hialeah and all the various funny and wonderful things that we do in Mexico. We had 3 weeks of no sleep, eat, and go places. Yes, he was fun. He had one disturbing fault. He was either singing or imitating birds or whistles or something most of the time. And every nice thing we showed him, he had it as nice or better in Ireland, because he was very proud of Ireland. And I don't blame him for that. Don't misunderstand me. I love the man like an older brother. He's about 72. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. You would love him. And all of my friends who are, I might add, are very selective, aside from me, in their friendships, all love Paddy. He gives a great deal of himself. Elaine's birthday, 2 of the parties we had were surprises, and which made me rather happy because it's difficult to surprise Elaine. She's pretty cagey, or she has a pretty high-grade mentality, and I guess I'm rather transparent in my aims and plans, but in this instance we had 2 surprise parties, and she said she really was surprised. Of course, she may have been pulling my leg a little bit, but I sure loved it, and we all had a wonderful, wonderful time. We went to San Francisco last weekend. Actually, we went on the night of July 3rd. And Harold Dill, which is Elaine's son, her baby, met us there. And in addition to driving some 300 miles, he showed us most of the interesting places in and around San Francisco. That accounts for the 300 miles. We went as high as 50 miles north and about 10 miles south and 15 miles east of San Francisco. We went to places where they have music and floor shows, clever entertainment. We went to places that offered excellent food, wonderful drinks and wines, and we tried them all. We spent too much money. We stayed out too late. We did all of the things that we shouldn't do probably, except that it was interesting, it was fun, and we enjoyed every minute of it. So it was just another beautiful thing, another beautiful trip to a city which we love. But by the way, I must mention, in deference and in pride, San Diego was very rapidly approaching the status that San Francisco has enjoyed for so many, many years. We have a number of fine restaurants, we have views, and of course we have the much superior weather to San Francisco, although I must say now that San Francisco weather couldn't have been more delightful while we were there. It was cool in the morning, pleasantly warm during the day, and cool, of course, in the afternoon, or late afternoon and evening, but not cold. And the weather, the air during the day was the clearest, purest, sweetest. It was like a light, palatable, sweet wine. We loved it. We went, of course, to the park, Great Golden Gate Park. We crossed both of the bridges. We went to all the little outlying towns. We went into the wonderful stores like Gump's, which has art treasures from all over the world. We went into some of the tobacconist stores, or the clothing stores, some of the big fine hotels, and by the way, they have another tower in addition to the Mark there. It's called the Fairmount Hotel Tower, which goes up 24 stories, and it's already sitting on top of a hotel, on top of a hill. So therefore, you look out for miles, and in this instance, some 60 to 70 miles on that clear blue air to see the surrounding territory. It was just wonderful. I just can't be too enthusiastic about it because it was just a fine thing, and we just wish for all of our good friends, and I hope that even in some small instance I can give you the an idea of what it was like there. Well, let me see. It looks like we're getting rather fairly close to the end, and I'm not going to be so parsimonious this time. I'm going to stop before. So, as Philip, no, it was Kim. Change over to the other side, old boy. Stand by for a changeover. Stop. Side 2, as Kim would say. By the way, Kim, you're an excellent engineer. This is side 2 at 3 3/4 speed, the year of our Lord, June the 10th, 1963. You asked me to send regards to Dick Shanks. Tex, Pam. That I did, and he was so pleased to hear from you. He says, and I quote him as near as I can, as you know, I am almost as poor a correspondent as Tex. In fact, the fact is, I think I'm worse because he has written and I haven't answered him. He says, I want to, but I just can't do it. I just don't seem to do it. And I says, yes, you're just like our old man Davee, meaning myself, of course. Yes, I guess you're right. So I invited him to get together with Elaine and Bud and any of the other folks I can think of that you might know to send a tape to you. But here I'm sending the tape and no one here but me. I just couldn't do it, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. Dick as well, Helen also. Bobby is married, and by the way, I told you that. He's been married, I guess, for, better than a year. And I found out today that Bobby will have issue. He will be a father in approximately 7 months. And he is, Dick, that is quite happy about it. Oh, Bobby is too, of course. Bobby's a good boy. And, of course, Dick is the first one to say so. Joanne and Dickie are still single. Joanne is, of course, in hospital, and she's, I don't know just where. I believe it's Los Angeles because she didn't want to stay so far up in San Francisco from her parents, and she didn't seem to care for the hospitals here. Dickie is still working with his dad, and he still likes cars and girls in that order. He will probably reverse the situation ere long, but right now it's cars is the big thing in his life, and he's had a number of them. The last one I think was a Corvette that is made by Chevrolet, a rather high-powered jet. Just a second, I can't think of the word. Injection fueled motor with a plastic body, light body on this small frame. They're a real sporty car. Compare rather favorably. In fact, the matter is that compare very favorably with the Triumph, the MG, and all those, because they are very fast for a short distance. They don't seem to stand up, however, in the distance in races. Dick, among other things, naturally said to tell you if I wrote or talked to you prior to our tape, and we will have that, that he thinks of you often, and he also thinks of the many friends which you brought into his establishment and to his home. And of course, one of the first he mentions was Bill Kerr, Kerr, the tall, lanky, likable fellow. Well, everybody likes Bill. He's just a sweet guy. Really he is. And he mentioned one that I didn't know, named Ted Coates. He says he's sort of a plump fellow and a real likable man. I didn't meet Ted Coates, but he said, if you know where they are, tell them, this is to you, of course, tell Tex that if he knows where they are, say, Dick Shanks sends his very best regards and hopes that they are well, they're happy, and he'd like to hear from them. Of course, bless his old heart, he doesn't worry about, I guess, returning that message, but he'd like to hear from them just the same. Well, that's Dick Shanks for you. A real sweet, wonderful man, and has a fine family. Yes, he's still living out on the point, not on the point, out on the mountain out there, which I think you saw. In fact, I know you did. Dick's business has been pretty fair. He's dealing pretty much with the big companies, and therefore his the only trouble is getting the money when the time comes, so that he doesn't have to uh, worry about paying for something which he has not yet been paid for. Well, the problem of all uh, wholesalers, or merchants for that matter. I was supposed to have gone to Acapulco, Mexico today with a bunch of fellows well, they're going down for not more than 3 weeks. I had planned to go for about 1 week, maybe 10 days. I have I was going by myself. That is, I wasn't going to take Elaine because they go down there for swimming and for because the man who owns this beautiful home in Acapulco, Mr. Bill Evans, has invited us for years to go down, and these other fellows have gone several different times, had a wonderful time, and always I felt like I didn't want to leave Elaine. Well, she urged me to go this time. Why, I do not know, but I guess she felt that I had been hovering around her for several years now, 17 and a half to be exact, and had not gone away except for one night I was away from her. Uh, so she urged me to go. So I did. I mean, I planned to, but I went down there, and by golly, I had been placed on the waiting list, and at the last minute found out I could not go. So there I saw my friends sail away into the high blue yonder, leaving little Clyde boy waiting wistfully at the desk. However, they reconfirmed me, and I'm going out tomorrow at the same time. And so I'll go down there and stick my heels in the blue Pacific, where there's sharks, stingarees, Mexicans, tourists, and our friends. And I'm not calling them sharks, tourists, or Mexicans. They're just my friends, and probably I'll have a few of all. At least I hope so, and especially the sharks, because somehow, if they're not friendly, I don't think I'm going to enjoy the sharks. However, Kim, that's a joke. Your Uncle Clyde was being rather facetious there, and I didn't know you were going to be up and hear this portion of the tape, or I wouldn't have said just as I did. However, I know that you'll understand that that I like to say things like that. I really do. I like to see a smile on people's face, and sometimes I do things which are not exactly dignified, simply to see people smile. Well, I'm not going to apologize for it. It's just the way I am. When I get to Mexico City, of course, I'm going to stop overnight. We leave here about 3:30 in the afternoon, and we stay overnight. And the next day, my flight is routed out at 1 p.m. to Acapulco, which is only 300 miles or about 1 hour from there. But I might change that when I get there, because it's according to how I find my friends, and I have about 6 real fine people that I want to see in Mexico City. So I may just stay over until later in the afternoon and go out along late in the afternoon. It'll be a nicer flight, and after all, who wants to get down into the tropics in the heat of the day? Time out while I recheck this, and I'll come back with some more thoughts. I find I neglected to tell you that in our trip to San Francisco over the 4th of July weekend, that we went up to Jack London's home in Glen Ellen, some 50-60 miles north of Oakland, San Francisco, in the mountains, in a place called Valley of the Moon. I'm sure if you have read any of the biographies of Jack London, they have spoken of his wolf house there that he built and which burned down just about the time he was ready to move into it. That is, all of the wood portion burned. It was high on a hill overlooking this wonderful little valley, which had a propensity or proclivity for fogs, which, when filled, resembled a moon. His wife, after his death, and I understand he committed suicide at the age of 40, which was approximately 1935. I really don't know. I should know, but I haven't the book with me now. He His wife built another house, which is open to the public, and we went all through there and saw his mementos, his gun, his saddle, his hat, his gloves, his several facsimiles of his manuscripts of some of his finer books, and he wrote some wonderful, wonderful books, as you know. It was most interesting and I felt like I was in a shrine to stand there in the home that and see a home of his wife. He had never trod the floors of this house, but his wife built it after they had, I guess after he was dead, come to think about it, and moved so many of his things into it. Most interesting, very, very interesting. We went, of course, into several of the wineries in that area, the Napa and the Sonoma Valley wineries, which are world-renowned for their California wines. In fact, tonight I had, as you may have noticed from my speech, I had a small bottle of wine with my dinner, which leads me to another subject. Since my wife expected me to be away, as well as Lois Neinish, who was the hostess for a dinner tonight. She had invited Elaine to go to dinner, knowing that she would be alone and probably would feel a little bit lonesome since her spouse, meaning Clyde Owen Davee, was away, invited her out for dinner. So I insisted that she go. So I went up to Caesar's, up on 6th and University, and I think that we four were there, and had a small bottle of wine with my spaghetti and ravioli, and so I'm in a fine, mellow state of affairs. The music which is coming to us now on the radio is a theme song from High Noon. That's a moving picture which starred the now deceased tall, lanky star called Gary Cooper. I never did see the picture, but the music is pretty, and this particularly is well played. You've probably heard various tunes as the radio has come in, and I've left it on because it's rather soothing, it's very pleasant, and I love good, pleasant music. Although I'm sorry to say my knowledge of the classics, operas, and so on is very, very limited. It's been a warm day today. That is, not too warm. I presume that I got quite heated up coming back from the airport in Mexico and driving back through the traffic. We had to wait in line for 30 minutes, I guess, with the motor running, and that's all. It was, of course, warm and rather nervous time. So when I came home, I was quite warm. I removed my suit, put on a sport shirt and light slacks, and went out and watered the garden for some hour and a half, and by the way, it needed it. As I say, it was a warm day, about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Now tonight there's a faint but pleasant breeze blowing. I'm sitting here in this same sport shirt, looking out through the windows at the airplanes taking off from the municipal airport that is, and seeing the cars going and trucks going up the Highway 101, the main artery to Los Angeles, or Los Angeles, meaning the angels. Actually, the whole name of that town is Our Lady of the City of the Angels. But they've always shortened it down to Los Angeles, as the Spaniards or Mexicans say it, which means the angels. Here's another nice piece. I'll let you hear a bit of it. Dream, oh dream. That reminds me, the music you transcribed onto the tape was excellent. Um, oh goodness, I can't remember what they were. Of course, I remembered the songs that your good wife and her son sang about. Oh, Waltzing Matilda, and then there were two others that were excellent. That's the kind of music that I enjoy because they're so different from things which I normally hear. Um, which reminds me of another item. I just go on and on, do I not? Anyway, every time Bud gets over and we want to send a tape to Paddy O'Connell in Ireland, he wants to sing Irish songs, the old Irish son of a gun. Uh, and I say, Faith and begory, Bud, me lad, do you not know that they're knee-deep in Irish songs over in Ireland? Why will you not be singing a good old American song, so that the Irish can have a change of song over there? Well, Clyde, old boy, he would say, I love to sing Irish songs, and if my Irish friends love me, as I hope they do, they will enjoy the songs I attempt to sing. End quote. All of which is very true. I agree. But, says I, faith and begory, you should be singing American songs for our Irish brethren. And, end quote, that's also what they say. But good old Bud, he just loves to sing Irish songs. So, I don't suppose I'll ever change him. On the other hand, why should I? You're probably wondering why I'm leaving my charming little wife and my comfortable home, business, and this rather pleasant climate to go down to the tropics in the summertime. Well, Bill Evans is a real good friend of ours who is some 78 years of age and has this beautiful home which he has leased from a Mexican owner right on the bay in Acapulco. He has servants that stay there the year round, and so in the summertime he has this group which goes down for 2 weeks as a rule, sometimes 3 men, because the women don't care for the heat. And they, because this will be my first trip down there. They get up and have their wonderful breakfast, and they have a wonderful cook there. Actually, she is a marvelous cook. They get their wonderful breakfast, and then then they go to the beach. And after swimming for some hour and a half, actually it's in the water, out of the water, sit on the beach and pass along the news of the day. We call it gabbing, or just plain small talk. They come back to the house and have a midday cocktail hour, usually tequila. And when the party has come sufficiently warm and rascally, I say that in a tender way. I mean when they're happy, and then they go into dinner, and that's the big meal of the day because it's the tropics. And after the meal of the day, the big meal of the day, usually wine is served with that meal, and then comes the wonderful Mexican siesta. Everybody runs in, throws off their clothes, brushes their teeth, and lies down on top of the bed for a siesta, or a nap. And when you're in the tropics, my friend, and you probably know about that little nap, which sometimes can run in as, well, from past experience, it has run as high as 3 hours. I'm not bragging when I say that, because 30 minutes to an hour is usually sufficient. But in the heat of the day, it's a wonderful way to pick up, and then you can stay up until midnight and not feel sleepy during the daylight hours. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going down there and swim. I'm going to, and the water, by the way, is about 83 degrees. Might be even warmer. But due to the warmth of the air, it will feel almost chilly when you first get in. But you can swim for 30 minutes, and I sometimes, after I build up my strength a little bit and my coordination, I sometimes swim half mile at a plunge. I jump in and swim over to a bay and back again. And then maybe when someone else wants to go, I'll go with them again. And so therefore, I feel it does me a great deal of good. I keep my muscles in tune, and I sleep good at night. This will be my first trip down there in the summertime, however. We've been going down in either January or February in the past, and usually Elaine goes with me. But this time I'm going tomorrow. Since I was put off the plane today, I'll go down tomorrow, and I'll stay approximately a week. I'm looking forward to it because it'll be something different, and you know, we all need a change now and then. Breathes there a man with soul so dead, who never to himself has said, "This is my own, my native land," whose heart is ne'er within him burned, as home his footsteps he hath turned from wandering on a foreign strand? If such there breathe, go mark him well, for him no minstrel's raptures swell. Tired, high though his titles, power and pelf, the wretch, concentrated all in self, living shall forfeit fair renown, and doubly dying shall go down to the depths from whence he sprung, unwept, unhonored, and unsung. I can't quote the author, but somehow as I sat here gazing out through the window at the cars and the leaves hanging on the eucalyptus tree against the lights of the city, it came to me, and so now you have it. This Davee is a rather peculiar lad, isn't he? We made another investment last week, and if things break as we hope, within the next year or 2 years at the most, we hope to make that long promised or long hoped for and halfway promised visit to Australia. I love to come in on the wings of one of these beautiful flying machines, an airplane, and sit down there, and as we come down the gangplank, see your smiling faces, to hear Jan say, "Hello, Uncle Clyde. Hello, Aunt Elaine," to feel Kim's firm grasp, and to pick up Philip Scott, and well, by that time he'll be running around, and he'll be showing me around over the mainland of Australia, no doubt. Of course, I must say that I will enjoy looking into the gray eyes of the mother of this fine group, and feeling again the warm, friendly grasp of the hand of one Alan Morton. You notice I don't say Morton anymore, because well, you're not Mortons, you're Mortons, are you not? I can't forget that on your other tape when you Pam, mentioned that our Australian brassy tones, our American brassy tones, called you Mortons. I'm not hurt, please don't misunderstand me. I just, it was cute, I liked it. I thought Elaine would be here before now. She said, "Honey, I'll be home by about 8:30. It's now, well, it's only 9:15. I presume her dinner party was later than she thought it was going to be. And so I'm not worried at all, but nevertheless, I thought that before the tape ended that she would at least get the chance to say hello. And probably I should give her a chance to at least say hello. And since we've got about, I should judge 10 minutes more on this side, maybe I'd better just turn it off. No, I won't. I noticed when I played back a portion of this that the music was a little bit low, so I'm going to give you some more. This is sort of a dance music at present, and I'm going to raise it just a little bit and give you just a little bit more of music while I am using up this tape. Here we go for dance music. News! Elaine has returned. Elaine has come in full of fire, bright eyes, smiling, and also full of dinner. Here is Elaine.
Hello, Pam and Tex and all the dear children. We certainly enjoyed the tape. I particularly liked what Philip Scott had to say. Many messages from Philip Scott. And I hope that one of these days we'll get to see him, and also Kim and Jan. I've had a very nice evening with the girls out at Mission Bay. They're right looking out over the bay. Very lovely evening. They were supposed to have a Tahitian show, but it didn't come up very much to standard. I think Clyde has told you most of the news about our trip to San Francisco and his trip tomorrow to Acapulco. And I know he'll have a nice time, although I expect it will be warm down there. And but he will enjoy the swimming. I don't know if you know that I have 3 children, and of course you met my son Harold, but I do have 2 daughters. Each of the daughters have 5 children, and the little children that sent you a little bit of a tape were Harold's, my son's children. The next time they are over here at our home, why, we will play the tape so they'll get Kim's a message, which they will enjoy, and we'll try and have them send a tape to your children. Of course, they're about the ages of yours, where the other grandchildren of my daughters are older. In fact, one of the girls is going to, the oldest girl is attending Occidental College, and one of the older boys is also in college, and then some of them are in high school and so on. We don't see too much of the daughter's children, even though they do live in San Diego, because it seems like we all have our little nicks and different groups of friends, so that we don't, and then San Diego is such a large city now.
On behalf of the committee, Mrs. Davee, we thank you very kindly. You've been entertained by that one and only superior intellect of the Davee family, Elaine Genevieve Dill Davee, commonly known as Elaine or Elanita. Well, folks, it's getting late. It's after 10 o'clock at night, and we go to bed at 10:30 if we can. The tape is running out, the music is good, and the evening is cooling off. So now we will close with the thought for the day, if we can think what it is. I can't, so I'll see if Elaine has one. I have a joke I'm going to read to you from the Reader's Digest. Arriving in Sao Paulo, Brazil, after a month's trip out of the country, I tried to catch up on the news by way of my taxi driver. He was Japanese, a member of one of the larger settlements of his countrymen outside Japan. He did his best to fill me in, but when I asked him about soccer, our national sport, by the way, this is sent in by a Brazilian. When I asked him about soccer, our national sport, I drew a blank. I can't tell you about that, he said apologetically, because I never go to soccer games. My favorite sport is a Japanese game called baseball. Now that is a joke, son, on account of baseball's originated in the United States. Anyway, we're going to call it a night. God bless you all. Hope this tape comes through well, and we will see you soon. Good night, all. Good night. Good night. Quick.
Good night.